Today's episode we're joined by Zime. How are you doing, Zime?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. We want to talk about children ministry, the passion that you have for children. When did you realize that you had a passion for kids?
I don't know. I think it's more so, when you have that knowing feeling for years. Because for most of my life, I was like, I don't even think I like kids. I'm not going to lie. So when you get that feeling, you're like, but why would I have that?
Yeah.
But I realized, Guti, you know what? At some point, you start thinking as you get older, like, what's my purpose supposed to be in church and things like that. And you can see, Guti, there is nothing in your spirit pointing you to anything else but that.
Yeah.
Which, okay, sometimes you just need to get out of your comfort zones and whatever perceptions you think. Because based on my personality, it makes sense that I do children's ministry, and I do enjoy it because I don't come to church feeling like, oh my God, I have to do that now. I do look forward to it. And also I just have like a childlike sense of wonder. My friends always make fun of me for that. With the things I enjoy, the way I see the world is very much like a child. So I think maybe that's why I was drawn more to the children's ministry than anything else.
Yeah.
So, what's the best strategy to equipping parents to lead them spiritually?
To lead the kids.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, it's more so communication and being able to step outside of your role as a parent, because that I feel I'm not a parent, so I can never give parenting advice. But from what I've seen, the reason I sometimes can relate to them is perhaps because I don't have children yet. And I can step out of it and remember that because there's nothing unique, they're not experiencing anything particularly new. It might be at different degrees now, but it's more or less the same things we experience.
Yeah.
So being able to step back and not be like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, and I won't explain it. And trying to remember that as a child, you needed that explanation, and being mindful of how that would have impacted your behavior afterwards. I was fortunate enough. My mom was very young. The age gap between me and my mom is 20 years. So we grew up together, and my mom, like you've probably seen her, she likes communicating. So I am very well aware. One of my biggest advantages, and I thank God all the time for this, is that I had a mother who was well suited for me.
Yeah.
So the way she raised me, my mother, I'm not the type of person who responds well to being shouted at. My mother barely ever shouted at me. I needed to have done something significant. My mom barely ever hit us, to the point that every time she hit me, I still remember it. And I'm like, but girl, you deserve this. So I'm very mindful of that. But the thing that she got right was that she knew that I would respond better to her explaining. So my mom has never in my life told me not to do something.
Yeah.
She usually goes and says, you know what, I don't think you should do this because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I have been there. This is how I handled it. I don't wish for you to have to go through the same things. Now it's your decision. And if you choose, because there's certain things that are flexible where your parents don't want you to do them, but even if you did, it wouldn't be like a train smash.
Yeah.
So they're like, but if you do choose to do this, like maybe if your parents are like, okay, I don't want you to go to sleepovers. It's a family I don't know. I would rather you just didn't do sleepovers. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But if you but these are my friends, we want to hang out, we want to watch movies, then creating an environment, okay, if you do, if at any point you feel uncomfortable and you want to call home, don't be like, mom didn't want me to come here in the first place. She agreed because I really wanted to do this. So now I'm in trouble, or I'm in an environment where I'm realizing I don't feel comfortable and feel too scared to call them. So I think that's where parents can try to relate a bit better, just remembering your headspace as a child and trying to put yourself in their position. It doesn't mean you give them permission. It's like God did the exact same thing with us. He came as Jesus in the flesh so that he could experience, so that when he tells you that, okay, this is how I think you should walk, this is how you should be walking through your life, he's saying this based on things he experienced. He didn't come with his full divinity in earth. He still had struggles that were intrinsically human. So I feel like as parents, maybe that's what you should be doing. But once again, I'm not a parent yet, so I say stuff, but I'm also very well aware that I can't truly be aware of what challenges they face as parents. So from a Sunday school perspective, that's how we usually approach it. So when we discuss issues with them, it's like, okay, this is what we think you should do. This is what the Bible says. And we very much focused on teaching them why the Bible says what it says. So we will say to them, like right now we're going through the armor of God. We're going through each aspect of the armor. When we're discussing it, we said, okay, you need to put the breastplate of righteousness. Why is God put, like even the order they mentioned it, why is this put before this? Why do you think this is important? How does this apply in your life? So what does righteousness look like? Because it's a big word. So when you're speaking to a 12-year-old, what does righteousness look like? What does that mean? Like, why do you think of all the values God like could have put as part of the armor, why is righteousness the breastplate? Why is it important for you to be guarding your heart specifically? So like that's how we approach it, rather than just being like, the Bible says you need to be righteous, without giving them an understanding of why that's significant and how that even applies to them.
Some parents don't have that relationship with their kids because some can be focusing on other things like business. They don't really have the time. They don't really have, the quality time with their kids. How do you deal with self-doubt in kids?
I feel like I'm very passionate. I think it's one of the reasons I'm passionate about the Sunday school. I was fortunate enough that at a very young age, when I joined the Sunday school, I had a very big sense of community. So part of being in a community is that everyone has their own different strengths. So there's kids who perhaps won't say much because they worry that they might say things wrong, or some that are more vocal. So we did address that issue of self-doubt, and like, I think I even showed you the game we played where we were doing turkeys and eagles of like the lies the enemy will tell you and what God truly says about you. It seems like a very foreign concept, but it becomes something they grasp a bit better because it's a very big flaw perhaps in humanity, but it's also one of our biggest strengths. The fact that we like to emulate the people we surround ourselves with. So if just you like here and in the class there's one kid who's outspoken, who's going to be open to speaking up, then the others start chiming in is what I've noticed. So even the way we sit, we tend to sit in a circle so that it feels more like a conversation. So that even if when they have self-doubts, and also I'm very mindful of how I respond to when someone says something that maybe I don't fully agree with, and we all as a group break it down. I never say, no, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, why do you think that? So everyone else, what do you guys think about what this person said? So we all have an opportunity to break it down without anyone because then they start realizing that, yes, I was wrong, but I'm not the only one who had that same perception. And when they see other people thriving in that small community that we're trying to create, it does breed that. I think that's why athletes are so good, because most athletes in team sports, they get better because everyone else in the team is trying to get better. So I feel like for me, the way we address those things is just putting them in a sense of community. And yes, there's times where we break them into small groups, like when I asked you guys to assist with speaking to the boys, because I'm like, there's certain things that I might not be able to address, or that it wouldn't even be possible for me to address it in a setting where it's the whole class. So sometimes we do break them into smaller groups for like different issues that need to be addressed so that they're aware. I think the thing that brings most of us self-doubt is that you think what you're experiencing is uniquely yours. Like I realized as an adult that I was leaning more towards the anxious side. I didn't know that. I just thought like I like keeping to myself until I realized how I feel when I get put in a position where you now have to interact with other people. And I had to be honest with myself. I was like, why do you feel anxious around like people? Why do you get that? And I realized that the issue was, I felt like, okay, one, I can't have a conversation with this person. I don't relate to them. So that was a big thing. Like, I can't speak to this person. Then I'm going to start feeling awkward because you're speaking about stuff that, one, at times I might not even agree with, but I don't want to rock the boat because we're in the social setting. You don't want to be the person who's like bringing about conflict and like making other people feel like they judge or whatever. So I was like, yeah, like I live a very conservative life, so it makes me uncomfortable to be around people. But then it's different when you're in church because it's more so people who are like-minded. So you can say certain things because, let's be honest, Christianity is, like, when we are speaking, we will say stuff that probably sound really odd to someone who's not a Christian. So now if you are alone in that setting and you say something like that, like, you're like, yeah, God spoke to me and I just feel like this is what I should be doing. And someone's like, God spoke to you. How? How did you know it was him? You know, do that. Now you sound, yeah, you sound nuts. Whereas anyone else, I wouldn't even have to explain what that meant to you. Do you get it? So yeah, that's why. So that's what I try to do with the kids. Just put them in an environment where they're comfortable and where we celebrate their differences, their strengths, encourage them to participate in things and just to try things. Like do something. If you're horrible at it, guess what? Now you know. And there's nothing wrong with it. We're not all meant to know. And Jesus wasn't a fisherman. Yes, he picked people for his ministry, a majority of whom were fishermen, like if you're just going numbers. But he was a carpenter. That's the trade that he was most comfortable because that was the trade of his earthly father. So just being aware that sometimes you might not necessarily be comfortable with something or good at something and you think, but I should be. But your environment is different from someone else. So I'm glad, I feel very blessed that my class is so diverse and there's so many different people because I think that tends to bring them out of their shell sometimes.
How do you feel about self-assured?
Self-assured. Ooh, that's a tough one because it's very challenging even as an adult. It's because you're now moving from the space of being like, okay, I trust that God and like just believing in self that I'm chosen. I trust that God loves me. And then feeling comfortable in that setting and being comfortable in your skin enough to be like, okay, even if I'm dealing with this, I need to know that I'm still okay. That's a hard thing. I'm not even gonna lie. I still struggle with that. Where like I verbally tell myself sometimes, I'm like, you are okay. Like you're gonna be okay. Like I have that outwardly conversation with myself because sometimes I can't hear it, like because your mind is so loud. So yeah, like self-assurance is harder. Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to approach that. Like trying to teach someone to be self-assured because I know that I am not there yet. Yeah.
The best moment in the children ministry?
It's gonna sound so shallow, but I'm gonna be honest. It's gonna sound so shallow, but it's when last year the first outing we had was we went to this place where I just wanted them to get out. I'm like, kids, I don't know, like you guys don't play in the sun, you don't do that. And it was just seeing them out there having fun. And then you see the parallel of them just trusting you guys to be like, okay, if you are okay with this, you can climb and play here. And remember, they were at high heights, they were letting go. So you could see that they were in a space where they felt comfortable enough to know that I wouldn't say you can climb here and this harness is gonna hold you, and it won't. Even if you let go, you're probably not gonna fall off, you're still gonna be okay. So it was like just seeing how happy they were and also just seeing them being kids. It frustrates me and it makes me so sad to see kids not being kids anymore. Like I'm that person who's like, go outside, kick a ball, like do something. That's why half the time when I'm like, we should take the kids out, it's something outdoorsy. I want them to be there and play. I don't want them to be all serious. I'm like, you are children. There's a stage in your life where you're going to have to be an adult, where you now have to deal with things. But now you are a child. So I think that's like, we don't get to see it often, but I got to see them being children. And I enjoyed that. Like, you don't want a kid who's calculating all the time. You want a kid to just trust, as a parent, you want them to trust you that if I say this is okay, then it's okay. and then be at ease enough to be like, okay, I'm fine. Now it's time for me to just enjoy myself because they have told me I am fine. So I think that's why I'm like, it's shallow, it's nothing super deep, but I just enjoyed seeing how happy they were, how they let go, because most of them were like, I don't think this is gonna hold me. And when we spoke to them, we were like, you're gonna be okay. Like, you really are.
Yeah.
And they just let go, and you see when they let go and they start having fun. A lot of them halfway were like, I wanna turn back, and we're like, sweetie, you in the middle of this. There really isn't like the spot for you, because there were checkpoints where you could get off, and we're like, the spot where you can get off is there, so we just need you to get there. And like once they get there, they're like, oh no, I'm okay. Then they continue. So I really enjoyed that. I wish as adults we still had that, where you just like take a leap. Now you think of so many things before you take a leap. Yeah.
What are you looking for in the children's ministry right now?
What am I looking forward to? I'm oddly enough looking forward to seeing them as adults. I really am, because I truly believe that they're gonna turn into some amazing adults. So I enjoy just seeing them grow. And I got so emotional, like Youth Month, when you guys were preaching. And I didn't even understand why. I'm like, they're not even old enough to be my kids. But I think because I work with the Sunday school, I was like, oh my God, this could be them one day. Like, they'll walk in confidence in their walk with Christ, and they won't be ashamed and apologetic about it. I look forward to a generation where we normalize walking with Christ. Not in the cool way where we try to adjust it for the world and things like that, and just being strong in your convictions and not feeling some type of way. Like, as an adult, when I say to people I don't drink, now in my case, I can't even lie and say I don't drink because I'm a Christian. I just, like, I'm grateful God just never, like, He protected me from that. I just have never had the desire. But having to constantly explain is also something that's uncomfortable, because you're like, I just don't want to know. That's not it. People don't believe it. I'm like, I genuinely have never had the desire to do this. And having them be the next generation where that's normal, where if you say that, people are like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like when you say, I am waiting on God to give me X, Y, and Z, and people are just accepting that. I'm not going to walk this way because I don't feel that's what's purpose for my life. And not having to, and just having that be normal, so that they don't feel some type of way and feel like they need to hide who they are. Because God did say that we're the light of the world. So I want them to be the generation where they are that light that's sitting on top of the table and doesn't feel like it needs to be shoved under. That's really what I hope for them. Like I look forward to the day I see them as adults, and I'm like, you have come so far. I remember when you wouldn't even speak, or you wouldn't sing. We'd all just stare at each other awkwardly. I really look forward to that, and just them having them be passionate about God, like, and that's what I really look forward to.
What makes you want to encourage young generation?
Because I had the fortune of being someone who was encouraged, and I'm not naive to the fact that if it wasn't for God, my life would not look the way it does. Like when I look at, like, the person I am does not make sense. It does not. Like, my personality, my character, how I view the world, like I said, I on paper and intellectually, I know that I had a very tough upbringing, but I can't remember it. It's this weird thing where it's like my brain knows, but when I think of those moments, come to think of it, I don't have a bad childhood memory, like a memory where I think of it and it brings like a negative emotional response to me. All my childhood memories are happy, and I know for a fact that there's no way, like, based on everything, there's no way my childhood was that charmed. So, but I know that I was fortunate enough, like, I came into Christianity I just had a kid I liked, the neighbors were Christians, like, I grew up, like, our church was the Salvation Army. So yes, there's different, depending on who the pastor is, but it was very much a religious church, and I use this mindfully because I always say to people, I don't really regard myself as religious. I love Jesus. I'm a Christian through and through. But whenever I think of religion, I just feel like the laws, where you go to church, you don't have a relationship with God. It's like you go there, you do what you're supposed to do, you read your hymns, you say the prayers you're supposed to say. So that's what my brain thinks of when it thinks of religion. That's why I usually say, I love Jesus and I love God and I want my life to reflect who they say I am. But I don't necessarily say I'm religious because that's what I think of when I think of religion. So when I was fortunate enough that I had a friend next door, they would go, like sometimes they'd have a home cell, then I'd find myself in that space. Then after a while I joined there, I started going to church with them. Then my mom, being the good mother she was like, I should probably go with her. Just because, yes, your kid can be going to a church, but you don't know what they're preaching, So it was like, maybe I should. I trust them, they're nice, they're my neighbors, I love them, but maybe I should go, just check the scope. And we ended up as a family going to that church. And the pastor there, I think, was very much passionate about the children's ministry, because it wasn't a big church. It was a church that was in a garage. Like literally, we were in someone's yard, a garage. And he would open his house up every Saturday. We could not sing to save our lives, but he would let us be at his house. And there would be some older, because we were all different ages. Then some are busy trying to play the keyboard and it's like noise. We are screaming all over the show. But it created that sense of community for us. That's why I'm so passionate about this whole thing of community, where I knew where I was going. And there was also this lovely, lovely old lady. We called her Okoko. All of us, the whole neighborhood. Another person who, any day of the week, you could just be like, you know what, Nyovakashelu Koko. And any day of the week, you could go there and be there the whole day. She would make us do plays and all those stuff. She made us feel like we could do anything. So I think it was so there's certain blessings I know I had. So I feel like because I was raised in those environments where there were these people who made a decision that they were going to create an environment for us to feel like we are part of a community, we are part of something. That's why I'm saying I don't think we were that good. We even went on trips to compete in choir shows, and we did not know how to sing on pitch to save our life. We never won anything, but they still put their money in to get us there. Yes, we were passionate, and I think the passion was the issue. Because now we are all singing at the top of our lungs. We don't understand harmony. And I think they also weren't musically inclined. So they were just happy we were happy. And we would just do our things, go there, lose. And they're like, but you still did great. Those kids are older than you. With more practice. And we'd keep practicing. We never got better. But so that environment, I'm just that's what I really want from them. I want them to have a safe space.
Yeah.
Just tell me, how are you learning to be patient with yourself?
That's a hard one, because I am just generally patient with who I am. I genuinely believe that God has a plan for me. And so I exist in the other extreme, where I'm trying to get out of that space, where I am so passionate that I feel like sometimes I start leaning towards passivity, where things aren't happening and I'm just trusting God and being but I'm not. I think Pastor even touched on that. He's faith without direction. I believe that God's going to do this and I'm calm about it. It's going to happen. So I'm very much patient with myself as a person. That's why I don't know how I would say, give advice on that, because I just am. I'm very good at giving myself grace, which is odd for someone who tends to be anxious, but I'm able to say, okay, this is okay. For me, it's when I start trying to push myself. That's why I'm saying I realize that, oh no, this is still not healthy, because I'm on the far end where I'm just relaxed about everything. That anytime I have to push myself to do anything, I start having panic attacks, because now it feels so uncomfortable that it's easier to just be like, God's got it, I'm fine. And just existing, knowing that God has it. and not realizing that sometimes God needs you to take a step.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think this also hit me when I was reading the book, like the Genesis. I was reading the story of Noah, those chapters. So, and I was like, guys, God could have easily just made the boat and been like, hop on. It could have happened that way. But when you look at it, God was like, okay, I need you to build a boat. You look at those dimensions, they do not make sense. They do not make sense. The boat was objectively too small for all the animals that got on. But then when I was reading, I was like, no, God just needed him to act in faith. The Bible says that he will bless the works of your hands. So God will multiply what you do. So he built a boat, and God just made it so that they could still fit in comfortably with food for a year. They were in that boat for a year. And part of it, like a couple of months, he could already see that there was land, but he hadn't gotten the instruction to get off. So I'm like, sometimes I lean so far to the end that I'm just sitting passively. And God's like, start building the boat. And I'm like, but that's not possible. Like, how on earth am I going to build a boat that's going to fill all the animals, have enough food for all of us, and all of us still be comfortable? The dimensions you're giving me aren't making sense, so this can't be from God. And realizing that no, God won't give you more than you can handle. Moses, this always happens to the kid as well. Noah did not have, I don't think he could have, in the time before the flood came, built a boat big enough in his own capacity. So God was like, I'm going to let you do what you can do because I need you to walk in faith. I need to see some action from you. And then I will multiply whatever you do. So he built the boat, God brought the animals, made it big enough so that those, it doesn't make sense how. It's the same thing with the lady with the oil. She could have just fetched one jar and been like, I don't have enough. But she was told, get as much as you can. And it was her stepping in faith. God, it could have easily just have been let the sky, the manna, let the oil just start flowing and you can catch it with it. But no, she walked in faith and did what she was told, not knowing how it would happen. So that's why I'm saying I can't give advice on it, because I feel like I exist on the other extreme and I'm trying to push myself towards God needs you to make steps. He will guide your steps, but you need to make the steps yourself. It's not just going to show up. So for me, I'm very patient with myself. I am very, I trust that God will do what he says he's going to do. But I need to also have that spirit of discernment of being able to hear when God is like, this is the step I need you to take. It's not going to feel comfortable, but I need you to take the step because this is where your blessing lies. Rather than sitting in this place where I'm comfortable and I'm chilled out, I'm like, yeah. So I feel like, I can't give advice on that because I exist in the other extreme of it.
All right. Thank you for joining on the pod, Safe Space. We really appreciate you and we wish you all the best in the children ministry.